The wedding dress hung in the pawn shop window like a ghost. Elena Parker pressed her palm against the cold glass, watching strangers walk past the ivory lace her mother had sewn by hand 3 years ago. The price tag dangled from the sleeve. $2,000. Enough to cover the hospital's deposit. Enough to keep Noah breathing. She'd walked past this shop 14 times in the last 2 days, each time telling herself there had to be another way. There wasn't. The bank had laughed at her loan application. Her credit cards were maxed. Her teacher's salary barely covered rent. And Noah, her beautiful, broken Noah, was lying in a hospital bed with a heart that could stop any moment without surgery. The surgeon's voice still echoed in her head from this morning. "Mrs. Carter, without the procedure, your husband has maybe 3 weeks. With it, he could live a full life. But we need $8,000 up front before we can schedule the operating room." $8,000 might as well have been $8 million. Elena's hand trembled as she pushed open the pawn shop door. A bell chimed overhead, too cheerful for what she was about to do. The man behind the counter looked up from his phone, bored eyes scanning her like she was just another desperate soul trading memories for cash. "Help you," he drawled. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. The dress felt heavy in her arms, heavier than it had on her wedding day when she danced with Noah under string lights in her grandmother's backyard. He'd whispered in her ear that night, spinning her in circles. "You're the only treasure I'll ever need, Elena. The only one." Now she was selling that treasure to save his life. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Mom. The pawn shop owner stood now, impatience creeping into his voice. "You selling, or just looking?" Elena laid the dress on the counter. The lace caught the fluorescent light, and for a second, she saw herself in it again. 24 years old, hopeful, believing that love conquered everything. What a fool she'd been. Love didn't conquer medical bills. Love didn't negotiate with insurance companies who found loopholes to deny coverage. Love didn't stop a heart from failing. But maybe love could sell a dress. "How much?" she whispered. The man lifted the fabric, examining it with the clinical detachment of someone who'd seen 1,000 desperate trades. He checked the stitching, held it up to the light, then dropped it back on the counter like it was nothing. 1,500. Final offer. Her stomach dropped. "But it's worth at least 3,000. My mother made it by hand. Every stitch. Lady, I'm running a business, not a charity. 1,500 or walk." Elena thought about walking. Thought about holding onto this last piece of her mother, this last symbol of the happiest day of her life. Then she thought about Noah's laugh, the way he fixed her car without being asked, how he left sticky notes on the bathroom mirror that said things like, "You make ordinary days feel like magic." She thought about a world without him in it. "I'll take it." The man counted out the cash in 20s, each bill a tiny knife cutting away at her heart. Elena stuffed the money into her purse and turned to leave, but something made her look back one last time. The dress was already being hung in the window, joining the guitars and wedding rings and other people's broken dreams. She walked out into the Tennessee afternoon, the autumn air sharp against her tear-stained face. The hospital was 6 blocks away. She'd walk there now, hand over the money, beg them to take it as a down payment. She'd figure out the rest somehow. Work extra shifts. Sell her car. Sell everything. The crosswalk signal blinked red. Elena waited, gripping her purse like it contained the secrets of the universe instead of just $1,500 and shattered hope. Across the street, she could see the hospital's gray towers rising against the cloudy sky. Noah was in there somewhere, room 412, probably sleeping or staring at the ceiling, wondering why his body had betrayed him at 29 years old. He didn't know about the dress yet. Didn't know what she'd given up. The signal turned green, but Elena didn't move. Because standing on the opposite corner, staring directly at her with an expression she couldn't read, was a man in an expensive suit. He'd been watching the pawn shop, watching her, and now he was walking straight toward her with purpose in his stride. "Excuse me," he called out. "The dress you just sold. I need to know." But whatever he was about to say got drowned out by the screaming of sirens as 3 ambulances tore past them toward the hospital, lights flashing red and blue against the gray afternoon. Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. Her hands shook as she answered. Mrs. Carter? A nurse's voice, tight with urgency. You need to come now. Your husband's heart just stopped. Would you sacrifice your most precious memory to save someone you love? The phone slipped through Elena's fingers and clattered onto the sidewalk. Noah's heart had stopped. The words didn't make sense. Hearts didn't just stop. Not when you just sold everything to save them. Not when you'd made promises under string lights about forever. Not when you still had so much life left to live together. Elena ran. She didn't remember dropping her purse. Didn't remember the man in the expensive suit calling after her. Didn't remember crossing the street or pushing through the hospital's revolving doors. All she knew was room 412, 4th floor, and her legs couldn't move fast enough. The elevator took centuries. Elena slammed the button 17 times, watching the numbers climb with agonizing slowness. 3, 4. The doors opened, and she burst into the hallway, nearly knocking over a nurse carrying medication trays. Noah Carter, Elena gasped. Room 412. They said his heart. Ma'am, you need to wait. But Elena was already running past her, following the sound of urgent voices and beeping machines. Room 412's doors stood open. Medical staff crowded around the bed like a human wall. Through the gaps between their bodies, she could see Noah's face. Pale. Still. A doctor pressed paddles against his chest. Clear. Noah's body jerked. The monitor showed a flat line that made Elena's own heart want to stop. Again. 200 joules. Clear. Another jerk. Another flat line. Elena's knees buckled, and she grabbed the doorframe to keep from collapsing. This couldn't be happening. She just sold her wedding dress. She just got the money. She was supposed to hand it over, and they'd schedule the surgery, and everything would be fine. That was the deal. That was how this was supposed to work. A nurse noticed her and moved to block the doorway. Mrs. Carter, you can't be here right now. We're doing everything we can. Don't let him die, Elena whispered. Please. I gave up everything. Don't let him die. The nurse's eyes filled with pity, which was somehow worse than anything else. Pity meant they weren't sure. Pity meant Noah might not make it despite the paddles and the shouting and Elena's wedding dress hanging in a pawn shop window. 300 joules. This is the last one. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about the first time she'd met Noah, 3 years ago at her school's career fair. He'd been demonstrating how to change a tire, grease on his hands, that crooked smile that made her forget how to breathe. She'd asked him a stupid question about oil changes just to keep him talking. He'd asked for her number while wiping his hands on a rag. Their first date had been at a diner that served breakfast all day. He'd ordered pancakes at 8 p.m. and told her about his dream of owning an auto shop. She'd told him about wanting to teach kids who'd been forgotten by the system. They talked until the staff started stacking chairs on tables. We got something. A doctor's voice cut through her memories. We got a rhythm. Pulse is weak but steady. Elena's eyes snapped open. The monitor showed a heartbeat. Faint. Irregular. But there. Alive. She sagged against the doorframe, tears streaming down her face. The medical team continued working, adjusting IVs, checking vitals, their movements slightly less frantic now. Noah still hadn't opened his eyes, but his chest rose and fell. Rose and fell. The most beautiful thing Elena had ever seen. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, the doctor stepped out of the room. His scrubs were wrinkled, exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes. Mrs. Carter, your husband is stable for now, but that was extremely close. His heart is severely damaged. Without surgery in the next 48 hours, this will happen again. And next time, we might not be able to bring him back. Elena nodded, wiping her face with shaking hands. I have money. $1,500. I know it's not enough for the full surgery, but it's a start. I can get more. I'll get more somehow. The doctor's expression shifted. Something like respect, mixed with sadness. Let me be straight with you. The full procedure costs $45,000. Insurance denied your claim. $1,500 won't even cover today's emergency intervention. The floor tilted beneath Elena's feet. $45,000. She'd sold her most precious possession for $1,500, and it wasn't even a drop in the ocean of what they needed. "How long do I have?" she asked, "to come up with the rest?" 48 hours. Maybe less. The doctor hesitated, then added quietly, "I've seen people fundraise successfully. Online campaigns, community support, churches. You'd be surprised what people will do when they hear a story like yours." Elena looked past him into the room, where Noah lay connected to machines that beeped and hummed, keeping him tethered to this world by threads. A story like theirs. A love story that was supposed to have a happy ending, not a price tag. "Can I see him?" The doctor nodded and stepped aside. Elena walked into the room on legs that felt like water. Noah's hand was warm when she took it, his wedding ring loose on his finger from the weight he'd lost. She brought his hand to her lips and kissed his knuckles, tasting salt and antiseptic. "You're not allowed to leave me," she whispered. "You hear me, Noah Carter? I didn't sell my dress just so you could give up. We fight together. That's what we promised." His eyelids fluttered. For a second, Elena thought he might wake up, might squeeze her hand back. But he remained still, lost somewhere between here and wherever people go when their hearts stop beating. A commotion erupted in the hallway. Raised voices, someone arguing with the nurses. Elena turned just as the man in the expensive suit from earlier pushed past a security guard and appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "Mrs. Carter," he said urgently, "we need to talk about that dress. What could a stranger possibly want with a sold wedding dress?" Elena stared at the man like he'd just spoken a foreign language. "The dress." She shook her head, exhaustion making her thoughts slow and sticky. "I don't understand. I already sold it. What does that have to do with anything?" The man glanced at Noah's still form in the hospital bed, then back at Elena. He was maybe 50, with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too much. His suit probably cost more than Elena's car. "My name is James Mitchell. I was across the street when you walked into that pawn shop. I saw what you did." He paused, measuring his words. "That dress, the needlework, the pattern on the lace. I need to know who made it. If I ever found Sarah or her family, I was supposed to repay the debt with 50 years of interest." He held out the envelope. Elena took it with numb fingers and looked inside. A check, made out to Elena Parker Carter. The number had so many zeros she had to count them twice. $150,000. The room spun. Elena grabbed the bed railing to steady herself. "This isn't real. This can't be real." "It's real. My mother was a venture capitalist. She made a fortune in Silicon Valley. But she never forgot that debt. Never forgot her friend." James's eyes were damp. "I've been looking for Sarah Chun for 3 years. When I saw that dress in your hands, saw that pattern, I knew. I finally knew." Elena looked down at Noah, still unconscious, still fighting. Then at the check that could save his life. That could pay for the surgery, the recovery, everything. That could turn their nightmare into a miracle. "I can't take this," she whispered. "It's too much. I didn't even know about any debt. You're Sarah's daughter. That makes it yours." James's voice was firm. "Besides, I saw what you did today. Saw you sell your wedding dress to save your husband. My mother would have wanted this money to go to someone who understands sacrifice. Someone who loves the way she loved." A sob broke free from Elena's chest. She pressed her hand over her mouth, trying to hold it together, but everything was crashing down at once. The fear, the exhaustion, the impossible relief. She'd spent the last 2 days drowning, and suddenly someone had thrown her a rope made of her mother's memory and a stranger's kindness. "Thank you," she managed. "Thank you." James nodded and turned to leave, but Elena called after him. "Wait, your mother. What was her name?" "Jennifer Mitchell. But Sarah used to call her Jenny." Elena's knees nearly gave out. Her mother's jewelry box at home had a faded photograph tucked in the bottom. 2 young girls, arms around each other, laughing in front of a sewing machine. On the back, in her mother's handwriting, "Me and Jenny, 1975. Best friends forever." She talked about Jenny, Elena said softly. "All the time. Wondered what happened to her. Missed her until the day she died." James's face crumpled. He nodded once, quickly, then walked out before either of them could break down completely. Elena listened to his footsteps fade down the hallway, then looked at the check in her hands again. Real. Solid. Enough to save Noah and rebuild their lives. She kissed Noah's forehead, tasting salt and hope. We're going to be okay, she whispered. Your mother-in-law is still taking care of us, even from heaven. That night, after arranging Noah's surgery for the next morning, after calling the doctor and seeing the relief in his eyes, Elena sat in the hospital chapel. The same chapel where she'd prayed 2 days ago for any miracle, any sign, any help at all. The check was deposited. The surgery was scheduled. Noah would live. But when Elena finally let herself cry, it wasn't just from relief. It was from the weight of knowing that sometimes the universe does answer. Sometimes it sends help in the strangest ways. Sometimes it takes your wedding dress and gives you back everything that matters. She fell asleep in the chapel pew, exhausted beyond words. She didn't hear the commotion in the halls 3 hours later. Didn't hear the nurses running. Didn't hear the alarms. She woke to a hand shaking her shoulder and a doctor's grim face. Mrs. Carter, there's been a complication. Could fate really be this cruel? Elena's heart plummeted. What happened? What complication? The doctor's jaw was tight. Your husband woke up an hour ago. He was lucid, asking for you. We told him about the surgery scheduled for this morning. He paused, and Elena saw something in his eyes that terrified her. Mrs. Carter, he's refusing the procedure. What? The word came out like a gunshot. That's impossible. He can't refuse. He'll die. I know. We've explained that. But he's adamant. Says he won't let you destroy your life to save his. The doctor shifted uncomfortably. He somehow found out about the wedding dress. Elena ran. Again. Down the hallway, past the nurse's station, her shoes squeaking on the polished floor. She burst into room 412 to find Noah, sitting up in bed, pale and weak, but his eyes were clear. Determined. Heartbroken. Elena. His voice was rough from the breathing tube they'd removed. Baby, I can't let you do this. You don't have a choice. Elena crossed to him and grabbed his hands, squeezing hard. The surgery is in 4 hours. You're doing this. I heard the nurses talking. You sold your dress. Noah's eyes filled with tears. The dress your mother made. The one you said you'd keep forever. You sold it for me. Of course I sold it for you. You're my husband. You're worth 1,000 dresses. No. Noah pulled his hands away, and the gesture felt like a blade between her ribs. No, I'm not. Elena, look at me. Really look. I'm broken. My heart is broken. I can't work. I can't provide. I'm drowning us in medical debt. And now you've given up the one thing that mattered most to you. You matter most to me. Elena's voice rose, desperate. Noah, please. Don't do this. Don't you dare give up now.
I'm not giving up. I'm setting you free. Noah looked away, a tear sliding down his cheek. You deserve someone whole. Someone who won't break down on you. Someone who can give you the life you planned, not this nightmare. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to shake him until he understood that he was the life she'd planned. That every dream she'd ever had included his crooked smile and grease-stained love notes. There's something I need to tell you, she said, forcing her voice steady. About the money for the surgery. She told him everything. About James Mitchell. About their mother's friendship. About the debt and the check and the impossible miracle that had landed in their laps. Noah listened, his expression shifting from disbelief to wonder to something darker. So we got lucky, he said flatly. This time. But what about next time, Elena? What about when something else goes wrong? What about when I have another episode, or need more surgery, or can't work for months? His voice broke. What about when you wake up one day and realize you married an anchor, not a man? Stop it. Elena's hands shook with fury and fear. Stop talking about yourself like you're disposable, like you're not worth fighting for. I'm being realistic. You sold your wedding dress before you even knew about the money. You were ready to sell everything. Your car, your mother's jewelry, maybe even this house we've been saving for. Noah met her eyes, and the pain there nearly destroyed her. I won't watch you sacrifice your entire life piece by piece. I won't be the reason your dreams die. You are my dream. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. Don't you get it? I don't care about the dress or the house or any of it. I care about you. About us. about the life we promised to build together. Noah looked at her for a long moment. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, he said, "Sometimes love isn't enough." The words hung between them like poison. Elena felt something crack inside her chest, something that had nothing to do with hearts and hospitals and everything to do with Noah giving up. Not on life, on them. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're just going to refuse the surgery and die because you've decided you're not worth saving?" "I'm going to refuse the surgery because I love you too much to become your burden." Elena stood, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot where people came and went, their lives continuing normally while hers fell apart. She thought about the journal at home, the one titled "For When We're Old." Page after page of reasons she loved Noah. His kindness, his laugh, the way he fixed broken things with patient hands. She'd never written that he was perfect, never written that he was invincible. She'd written that he was hers. "You're a coward," she said without turning around. She heard Noah's sharp intake of breath. "Elena." "No, you don't get to talk now." She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "You're a coward, Noah Carter. You're scared, so you're running. You're hiding behind noble words about setting me free, but really you're just too afraid to keep fighting. Too afraid to accept help. Too afraid to let me love you the way you need to be loved. That's not fair. None of this is fair." Elena's voice cracked. "It's not fair that you're sick. It's not fair that we're drowning in bills. It's not fair that I had to sell my mother's dress. But you know what? I'd do it again. I'd sell everything. Because that's what love is. It's not about keeping everything perfect and pretty. It's about showing up when things are ugly and impossible and saying, 'I'm here anyway.'" Noah stared at her, something shifting in his expression. Elena pressed on, desperate now. "When we got married, I promised to love you in sickness and health. Did you think that was just pretty words? Did you think I didn't mean it?" She crossed back to the bed. "I meant every word, Noah. Every single word. So you can refuse the surgery if you want. You can give up. But know that you're not doing it for me. You're doing it because you're scared." The machines beeped steadily. Noah's hands gripped the blanket, knuckles white. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "I'm scared. I'm terrified. Not of dying, but of watching you regret choosing me." Elena climbed onto the bed, carefully avoiding the IVs and monitors. She took Noah's face in her hands and forced him to look at her. "Then let me make this very clear. My only regret would be not fighting hard enough to keep you here." She kissed his forehead. "Now stop being stubborn and let them fix your heart so we can go home." Noah closed his eyes, tears leaking out. "What if something happens during surgery? Then I'll be waiting when you wake up. Just like always." For a long moment, Noah didn't move. Then slowly he nodded. The tightness in Elena's chest loosened just slightly. They'd cleared one hurdle. But as she held her husband, feeling how fragile he'd become, she couldn't shake the feeling that harder tests were coming. The surgery was scheduled for 7 a.m. At 6:30, as they prepped Noah for the operating room, he squeezed Elena's hand. "I love you," he whispered. "No matter what happens. I'll see you on the other side," Elena promised. They wheeled him away. Elena watched until the elevator doors closed, then sank into a waiting room chair. All she could do now was wait and pray and hope that love really was enough. 3 hours later, a nurse appeared in the doorway, her face unreadable. "Mrs. Carter, the surgeon needs to speak with you. Right now." "What did they find during surgery?" The surgeon's mask hung around his neck, and there was blood on his scrubs. Elena's legs stopped working. She stood frozen in the waiting room doorway while the surgeon approached, his footsteps echoing too loud in the quiet space. Every second felt like drowning. His face gave nothing away. "Mrs. Carter." He gestured to a private consultation room. "Please." Elena forced herself to move. The room was small, sterile, with 2 chairs and a box of tissues on the table. People only needed tissues for bad news. Her stomach turned to ice. "Is he alive?" The words scraped out her throat. "Yes, he's alive and stable." The surgeon sat, motioning for Elena to do the same. "But we found something during the procedure. Something unexpected." Elena gripped the arms of her chair. "What kind of something?" "Your husband's heart condition. It's not genetic like we initially thought. There's extensive scarring on the cardiac tissue that's consistent with prolonged exposure to toxic substances. The surgeon pulled out a tablet, showing her images that looked like abstract art, but were apparently Noah's damaged heart. Mrs. Carter, has your husband been working with industrial chemicals? Heavy metals? Anything that could explain this level of damage? Elena's mind raced. Noah was a mechanic. He worked with oil, grease, cleaning solvents. But nothing that should destroy his heart. Just normal auto shop stuff, she said slowly. Why? Because the pattern of damage suggests exposure to something specific. Something most mechanics wouldn't encounter unless they were working with older, unregulated materials. The surgeon paused. Where does your husband work? Or rather, where did he work before getting sick? Carter's auto repair on Highway 41. But he's been there 3 years, and the owner runs a clean shop. Everything by the book. The surgeon's expression shifted. Something like recognition. Carter's. That's the old Morrison building, isn't it? Before it was an auto shop? I think so. It's been through a few owners. Elena leaned forward. What does the building have to do with anything? 20 years ago, that building was a battery manufacturing plant. They got shut down for environmental violations. Lead exposure, improper waste disposal. The EPA supposedly cleaned it up, but he shook his head. I've seen 3 patients in the last 5 years with this exact same damage pattern. All of them worked in that building. The room tilted. Elena pressed her hands flat on the table. You're saying Noah's heart failed because of where he worked? I'm saying it's very possible. If there's still contamination in that building, if your husband was exposed daily without proper protection. The surgeon met her eyes. Mrs. Carter, your husband needs to never set foot in that building again, even after he recovers from this surgery. 1 more year of exposure could kill him. Elena thought about the shop, Noah's dream job, the place where he'd been so happy, coming home every night with grease under his nails and stories about the cars he'd fixed. The owner, Mr. Peterson, who'd given Noah a chance when no one else would, who'd promised him a partnership next year. That dream was poison. Literally. Can we prove it? Elena asked. Can we test the building? You'd need an environmental specialist. It's not cheap, and even if you prove contamination, going after the building owner is complicated. Most policies don't cover occupational health issues from previous tenants. The surgeon stood. Right now, focus on your husband's recovery. The surgery was successful. We repaired the damage as best we could, but he'll need months of rest and monitoring. No stress, no physical labor, and absolutely no exposure to whatever damaged his heart in the first place. Months of rest meant months without income. Noah's job at the shop was their only steady money. Elena's teaching salary barely covered groceries. When can I see him? He's in recovery now. Should be awake in an hour or so. The surgeon's voice softened. You did good, getting him here in time. Another day, and we'd be having a very different conversation. Elena nodded numbly. After the surgeon left, she sat alone in the consultation room, trying to process everything. Noah's heart was fixed, but his job, his dream, the thing he'd worked toward his entire adult life, was killing him. How was she supposed to tell him that? An hour later, a nurse led Elena to the recovery room. Noah looked small on the hospital bed, surrounded by monitors and tubes. But his eyes were open, alert. When he saw Elena, he tried to smile. Hey, beautiful. His voice was weak, but steady. I'm still here. Elena crossed to him and took his hand, careful of the 4. You're still here, she echoed. Relief flooded through her, so strong it hurt. How do you feel? Like someone cracked open my chest and rearranged my insides. So, pretty great actually. Noah squeezed her fingers. The nurses said the surgery went well. That I'll be okay. You will be. Elena kissed his knuckles. But we need to talk about what comes next. She told him everything the surgeon had said. About the contamination. About the building. About how his dream job had been slowly killing him for 3 years. Noah listened without interrupting, his expression cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally, resignation. I can't go back, he said flatly. Can I? No, you can't. Noah looked at the ceiling, jaw working. I was going to be partner next year. Peterson promised. I was so close to everything I wanted. I know, baby. I know. What am I supposed to do now? Noah's voice broke. I'm a mechanic. That's all I know. That's all I'm good at. Elena climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed. You're good at a lot of things. You fix things. You solve problems. You make people feel safe. Those skills work anywhere. But not in an auto shop. Not doing what I love. There was no good answer to that. Elena held him while he processed, his breathing shaky against her shoulder. Outside, the sun set over the parking lot, painting everything gold and red. Another day survived. Another crisis weathered. But as Elena sat there, holding her husband who'd just lost his dream along with his health, she couldn't help wondering what else fate was going to take from them. How much more could they lose before there was nothing left? Noah fell asleep eventually, exhausted from surgery and grief. Elena stayed, watching his chest rise and fall, the monitor showing his steady heartbeat. Fixed but fragile, like everything else in their lives. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Carter, this is James Mitchell. I've been thinking about your situation. I may have a solution. Can we meet tomorrow? Elena stared at the message. What kind of solution could a stranger offer? But then again, James had already given them one miracle. Maybe he had another up his sleeve. She texted back, where and when. The response came immediately. 10 a.m. Peterson's Auto Repair. Trust me. Elena's blood ran cold. Why would James want to meet at the place that had destroyed Noah's heart? What was James Mitchell really after? Elena stood outside Peterson's Auto Repair at 9:55 a.m., her hands shaking. The building looked innocent in the morning light. Just a regular cinderblock structure with bay doors and a faded sign. But now Elena saw it differently. Saw the cracks in the foundation where poison might be seeping up. Saw the ventilation system that probably didn't filter out whatever toxins lurked in the walls. Saw the death trap that had slowly stolen Noah's health while promising him a future. James Mitchell's Mercedes pulled into the lot. He stepped out wearing another expensive suit, but today he carried a briefcase and had two other men with him. One wore coveralls with environmental testing stitched on the pocket. The other looked like a lawyer. Mrs. Carter. James shook her hand. Thank you for meeting me. I know this seems strange. Strange doesn't begin to cover it. Elena crossed her arms. Why are we here? Because I did some research last night. About this building. About what happened to your husband. James gestured to the man in coveralls. This is Robert Shun, no relation to your mother, but coincidentally also an environmental specialist. And this is Marcus Webb, my attorney. The pieces started clicking together in Elena's mind, but she didn't want to jump to conclusions. What kind of research? The kind that made me very angry. James pulled a folder from his briefcase. This building has a history. 23 years ago, Morrison Battery Company got shut down for lead contamination. The EPA did a surface cleanup, certified the building safe for commercial use. But they never did deep remediation. Never checked the subfloor, the walls, the groundwater. Robert stepped forward. I pulled the original EPA report. It's full of holes. They basically slapped a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and called it fixed. Elena's stomach churned. So Noah wasn't the first person to get sick here. No. James's jaw tightened. I found medical records going back 15 years. 7 people who worked in this building developed cardiac issues consistent with heavy metal poisoning. 7 people, and nobody connected the dots. How did you find all this in one night? I have resources. And when I heard what the surgeon told you, I couldn't let it go. James looked at the building like it was a living enemy. My mother died of guilt over a debt she couldn't repay. I won't watch another family get destroyed by something preventable. Marcus, the lawyer, opened his own briefcase. Mrs. Carter, we'd like to test this building thoroughly. Document everything. If we find what we think we'll find, we can build a case against the property owner for failing to disclose hazardous conditions. Peterson. Elena thought about Noah's boss. The man who'd given him a chance, who'd promised partnership. He might not know. He only bought the building 5 years ago. Doesn't matter. Marcus's voice was firm. Property owners have a legal obligation to ensure workplace safety. If the contamination exists, he's liable. And if we can prove the previous owners and the EPA knew about the risks and didn't properly remediate, this gets much bigger. Elena's head spun. This wasn't just about Noah anymore. This was about 7 other people who'd gotten sick, about future employees who might work here, about justice and accountability, and making sure nobody else lost their health to corporate negligence. "What do you need from me?" she asked. "Permission to proceed." James met her eyes. "This will get messy. Lawsuits, depositions, media attention. Your husband's medical records will be part of the case. Your life will be under a microscope. But if we do this right, we can shut this place down and get compensation for everyone who got hurt." Elena thought about Noah in his hospital bed, mourning the loss of his dream. Thought about the other 6 people who'd gotten sick, who maybe didn't have a James Mitchell to help them fight back. Thought about the next mechanic who might take a job here, not knowing the walls were poisonous. "Do it." Her voice was steady. "Test everything. Build your case. I want this place shut down." Robert grinned and pulled out equipment from his van. Within minutes, he was taking samples from the floor, the walls, the air itself. James and Marcus documented everything with cameras and legal forms. Elena watched, feeling like she was standing at the edge of something huge. A truck pulled into the lot. Peterson himself, early 50s with permanent grease stains on his jeans. He climbed out, confusion shifting to alarm when he saw the activity. "What's going on here?" He spotted Elena. "Mrs. Carter? What is this?" "Environmental testing, Mr. Peterson." James stepped forward, blocking Peterson's path to the building. "We have reason to believe this structure contains hazardous materials that have caused serious health issues to your employees." Peterson's face went red. "That's ridiculous. I had this building inspected before I bought it. Everything was clean. Clean according to a 23-year-old EPA report that was incomplete." Marcus handed him a legal notice. "We're conducting comprehensive testing. You're welcome to have your own team verify our findings." "This is harassment. I'll call my lawyer." "Please do." Marcus smiled, but there was steel in it. "We'll be filing a formal complaint with OSHA by end of business today." Peterson looked at Elena, something like betrayal in his eyes. "Noah was like family to me. I gave him opportunities nobody else would. This is how you repay that." Elena stepped forward, anger burning through her shock. "You gave him opportunities that destroyed his heart. Whether you knew about the contamination or not, my husband almost died working here. 7 other people got sick. So yes, this is exactly how I repay it." Peterson opened his mouth, closed it, then stormed back to his truck. He peeled out of the lot, leaving rubber marks on the asphalt. Elena watched him go, adrenaline making her hands shake. "You okay?" James asked quietly. "No, but I will be." Elena turned to Robert. "How long until you have results?" "Preliminary findings by tonight. Full report in 3 days." Robert pulled a sample from the wall, and even from 6 feet away, Elena could see the dark staining in the material. "But I can tell you right now, this building is a hazard. Nobody should be working here." James pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, he'd arranged for OSHA to send an emergency inspector. The building would be shut down today, pending investigation. No more mechanics breathing poison. No more lives sacrificed to ignorance and corner cutting. Elena felt something shift inside her. For weeks, she'd been reacting, scrambling, just trying to survive. But now she was acting, fighting back, taking control of a situation that had been controlling her. Her phone rang. The hospital. Her heart jumped. "Mrs. Carter? This is Nurse Rodriguez. Your husband is asking for you. He seems agitated. Can you come back? I'm on my way." Elena ended the call and looked at James. "I need to go. Noah doesn't know about any of this yet. Go. We'll handle things here." James squeezed her shoulder. "You're doing the right thing. It doesn't always feel good, but it's right." Elena drove back to the hospital, practicing what she'd say. "How do you tell your husband that his dream job poisoned him? That his boss, knowingly or not, put profit over safety? That fighting for justice meant reliving the trauma in courtrooms and depositions?" She found Noah sitting up in bed, the TV remote in his hand, staring at the local news. On the screen, footage of Peterson's auto repair with caution tape and official vehicles. A reporter's voice, breaking news. Local auto shop shut down amid contamination concerns. Noah looked at Elena as she walked in, his expression unreadable. Tell me you didn't do this, he said quietly. How do you save someone who doesn't want to be saved from the truth? Elena closed the hospital room door behind her, buying herself seconds to find the right words. Noah, I can explain. Can you? Noah's voice was flat. Dangerous. Because I just watched my workplace get shut down on the news. My boss being questioned by OSHA inspectors. And somehow I'm guessing my wife had something to do with it. Everything to do with it. Elena moved closer, but Noah held up a hand. Stop. Just stop and tell me the truth. What did you do? So Elena told him. About James Mitchell's research. About the 7 other victims. About the contamination that had been lurking in that building for 23 years, poisoning everyone who worked there. She told him about the lawsuit they were building, about shutting down the shop to protect future employees. Noah listened without interrupting, his face carved from stone. When she finished, the silence stretched so long Elena thought she might scream. You had no right, Noah finally said. What? Elena blinked, certain she'd heard wrong. You had no right to make that decision without me. That was my job, my career, my life. Noah's hands gripped the blanket. You just destroyed Peterson, destroyed the shop, destroyed everything I worked for. The shop was destroying you. Elena's voice rose. Noah, that place almost killed you. It did kill your heart. How can you defend it? I'm not defending it. I'm saying you should have talked to me first. Instead, you went behind my back and made choices that affect my entire future. Noah looked away. I'm not a child, Elena. Stop treating me like I can't make my own decisions. Elena felt like she'd been slapped. I was protecting you. I didn't ask you to protect me. I asked you to respect me. Noah's voice cracked. Do you know what it's like? Lying here, helpless, while my wife handles everything. Makes all the calls. Sells her wedding dress. Fights my battles. I feel like I'm disappearing, Elena. Like I'm becoming this thing you have to fix instead of your husband. The words hung between them like shattered glass. Elena sat down slowly, her legs giving out. So what was I supposed to do? Let you go back to that toxic building? Let more people get sick? Pretend everything was fine? You were supposed to talk to me. Let me be part of the decision. Let me have some control over my own life. Noah finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was worse than anything. I know you love me. I know you're trying to help, but you're suffocating me. Every choice you make for me is another piece of myself that disappears. Elena's throat burned. I am sorry. I just wanted to help. I know, but help that takes away my voice isn't help. It's control disguised as love. They sat in painful silence. The machines beeped steadily. Outside, a cart rattled past in the hallway. Normal hospital sounds while Elena's marriage cracked open like ice in spring. What do you want me to do? She asked quietly. I want you to include me. Ask me. Let me choose, even if my choices aren't what you'd pick. Noah's voice softened. I want to be your partner, not your patient. Elena nodded, wiping her eyes. You're right. I should have called you before meeting with James. Should have asked what you wanted. Yeah, you should have. Noah exhaled slowly. But I also get why you didn't. You're scared. I'm scared too. Everything's falling apart, and we're both just grabbing at anything to make it stop. So what do we do now? Noah considered this. Now, we figure out together. No more surprise decisions. No more going behind each other's backs. We sit down and we talk through every choice like the team we're supposed to be. Okay. Elena moved to the bed, and this time Noah didn't stop her. She took his hand. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. That was never my intention. I know, and I'm sorry I scared you by refusing surgery. That was my pride talking, not my sense. Noah squeezed her fingers. We're both messed up right now. Let's just try to be messed up together instead of separately. Elena laughed through tears. Deal. They talked for the next hour. Really talked. Not just about the lawsuit, but about everything. About Noah's fear of being useless. About Elena's terror of losing him. About money and jobs and rebuilding their lives from scratch. It wasn't easy. Some parts hurt worse than the surgery. But slowly, they started finding their way back to each other. A knock interrupted them. James Mitchell stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. I'm sorry to intrude. The nurse said I could come up. He glanced between them. Mr. Carter, I'm James Mitchell. I'm the one who initiated the investigation into your workplace. Noah studied him for a long moment. So you're the guy who destroyed my career. Nah, Elena Warnet. No, he's right to be angry. James stepped into the room. Mr. Carter, I understand this feels like I'm interfering in your life. But I need you to understand something. You're the 8th victim we know about. 8th. And if we don't stop this now, you won't be the last. 8. Noah's anger flickered to shock. 8 people who've worked in that building over the last 20 years and developed heart conditions from heavy metal exposure. 3 of them are dead. James pulled out his tablet, showing medical records and death certificates. David Morrison, age 38. Heart failure. Jennifer Powell, age 42. Cardiac arrest. Thomas Wheeler, age 51. Congestive heart failure. All worked at Peterson's. All died within 5 years of starting there. The color drained from Noah's face. I didn't know. Nobody did. That's the problem. Each case was treated as individual bad luck. Nobody connected them until now. James sat in the visitor's chair. Your wife didn't destroy your career, Mr. Carter. She saved your life and possibly prevented more deaths. I know that doesn't make losing your job easier, but it's the truth. Noah was quiet for a long time. Elena watched emotions play across his face. Grief, anger, fear, acceptance. Finally, he looked at James. What happens now? Now we build a case. Sue Peterson, the property owner, the EPA, everyone who failed in their duty to keep that building safe. We get compensation for you and the other victims. And we make damn sure the building never operates as a workplace again. James leaned forward. But I need your cooperation, your medical records, your testimony, your willingness to fight. And if I say no, then the case falls apart. You're our strongest evidence because you're alive and we can directly tie your condition to the building. Without you, the others might not get justice. Noah looked at Elena. She stayed quiet, letting him choose. This was his decision, his life, his voice. Tell me what you need, Noah said finally. Relief flooded Elena so strongly she nearly gasped. James smiled and pulled out paperwork. For the next hour, they went through everything. Medical release forms, testimony agreements, timeline documentation. Noah answered every question, his voice getting stronger as he went. By the time James left, Noah looked exhausted but somehow more solid, like he'd taken back a piece of himself that had been missing. Thank you, Elena said quietly, for choosing to fight. Thank you for giving me the choice. Noah pulled her close. We're going to be okay. I don't know how yet, but we will. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that love and determination could overcome poisoned buildings and lost dreams and medical debt. But as she held her husband, feeling how fragile he still was, doubt whispered in the back of her mind. 3 days later, Noah was discharged with a folder full of instructions and prescriptions they couldn't afford. They drove home in silence, both staring at the modest apartment that suddenly felt too small for all their problems. Elena helped Noah inside and got him settled on the couch. She was making tea when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Mrs. Carter? This is Detective Sarah Reeves with the County Sheriff's Office. I need to speak with you about Peterson's auto repair. There's been a development. What had they found? The detective's voice was calm, but urgent. Mrs. Carter, can you come to the station? This concerns your husband's case. Elena glanced at Noah on the couch, already half asleep from pain medication. Can this wait? My husband just got home from the hospital. I'm afraid not. We've uncovered evidence that changes everything. A pause. It's about Peterson. He's missing. Elena's blood went cold. Missing? Since when? Since yesterday morning. His wife filed a report this afternoon. But there's more. Before he disappeared, he cleaned out the shop's business accounts. Every penny. We're talking close to $200,000. The tea kettle screamed. Elena turned off the stove with shaking hands. Are you saying he ran? I'm saying it looks suspicious. And there's something else you need to see. Can you come now? Bring your husband if he's able. 20 minutes later, Elena and Noah sat in a stark interview room at the county sheriff's office. Detective Reeves spread photographs across the table. Images of Peterson's office at the shop, file cabinets torn open, papers scattered everywhere. We executed a search warrant this morning based on the OSHA findings. Detective Reeves tapped one photo, found these hidden in a false bottom drawer. The documents made Elena's stomach turn. EPA reports from 23 years ago, marked confidential. Inspection records showing dangerous contamination levels. Medical complaints from former employees. And emails. Dozens of emails between Peterson and the previous building owner, dated 5 years ago when Peterson bought the property. Noah read one aloud, his voice hollow. The EPA cleanup was cosmetic only. Deep contamination remains. I'm selling as is. Price reflects environmental liability. He looked up. Peterson knew. From day one, he knew that building was poisonous. Worse, Detective Reeves pulled out another document. He bought the property for 40% below market value, specifically because of the contamination. Then he hid the reports and opened the business anyway. He saved money by not doing proper remediation, and he saved more by not providing adequate protective equipment to employees. That's murder. Elena's voice shook. People died because he wanted to save money. It's criminal negligence at minimum, possibly manslaughter for the 3 deaths. The district attorney is building a case. Detective Reeves leaned back. But we need to find Peterson first. Has he contacted either of you? They both shook their heads. Noah's hands were fists on the table. I trusted him. He acted like family. He promised me partnership. He promised you nothing. These emails show he planned to close the shop within 10 years anyway, before lawsuits could catch up with him. The partnership was a carrot to keep you working. Detective Reeves's voice softened. Mr. Carter, you weren't an employee to him. You were acceptable risk. The words hit like hammers. Elena reached for Noah's hand, but he pulled away. She watched him process the betrayal, watched it layer on top of everything else he'd lost. His health, his career, his dreams, and now the revelation that it was all built on lies. What happens now? Noah asked quietly. We find Peterson, freeze his assets, build a case. With your testimony and these documents, we can put him away for years. Detective Reeves gathered the photos. But I need you both to be careful. Peterson knows you're the key witness. People do desperate things when cornered. You think he'd come after us? Elena's voice climbed. I think he's already proven he values money over human life. So yes, be careful. Lock your doors. Report anything suspicious. And call me immediately if he contacts you. She handed them her card. They drove home in stunned silence. The apartment felt different now, exposed. Elena checked the locks 3 times. Noah sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Talk to me, Elena said gently. I can't believe I was that blind. All the signs were there. The ventilation that never worked right. The headaches everyone complained about. The way Peterson always found excuses not to upgrade equipment. Noah's voice cracked. I thought he was just being cheap. I didn't know he was killing us. Elena moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. It's not your fault. He lied. He manipulated. That's on him, not you. Is it? Because I chose to work there. Chose to ignore the warning signs because I wanted that partnership so badly. Noah covered his face with his hands. I was so desperate to succeed, to prove I could build something, that I didn't question why the opportunity was so good. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it. That makes you human, not stupid. They sat like that for a long time. Eventually, Noah pulled Elena into his lap, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a world gone liquid. They didn't talk, didn't need to. Sometimes survival was just breathing together until the panic passed. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from James Mitchell. Heard about Peterson. I've hired private security to watch your apartment. Don't be alarmed if you see someone in a car outside. They're there to help. Elena showed Noah the message. He nodded, exhausted. I'm going to lie down. Wake me if anything happens. She helped him to bed, watching until his breathing evened into sleep. Then she stood at the window, looking down at the street. Sure enough, a dark sedan sat 3 spaces down, a figure visible in the driver's seat. Protection or prison? Elena couldn't tell anymore. Her phone rang. The pawn shop owner. Mrs. Carter? This is Bill from Second Chances Pawn. You sold a wedding dress here a few days ago. Yes. Elena's heart clenched. Why? Someone just tried to buy it. Offer me triple what I paid you. But something fell off about the guy, so I said it was already sold. Then he got aggressive, threatened me if I didn't tell him who bought it. Elena's blood turned to ice. What did this man look like? Early 50s, grease-stained jeans, real angry energy. A pause. Ma'am, I didn't tell him anything, but he seemed real determined to find that dress. Thought you should know. Thank you. Elena ended the call and immediately dialed Detective Reeves. It's Peterson, she said when the detective answered. He's not running. He's hunting. Peterson wanted the dress back. But why? What could a sold wedding dress possibly tell him about their case against him? Unless it wasn't about the dress at all. Unless it was about sending a message. About showing them he could reach the things they loved, the memories they treasured, the pieces of their lives they thought were safe. Elena locked the bedroom door and called James Mitchell. We need to move. Tonight. Peterson knows where we live. He's looking for ways to hurt us. Already on it. I'm sending a car in 15 minutes. Pack light. Just essentials. James's voice was steel. He's not going to touch you. I promise. Elena woke Noah, and they threw clothes into bags with shaking hands. 15 minutes later, they were in the back of a black SUV, watching their apartment building disappear behind them. The driver was ex-military, James had said, trained for exactly this kind of situation. They ended up in a hotel across town, top floor, room registered under a fake name. James met them there with Chinese takeout and a plan. Peterson made a mistake. He's showing his hand. The police have surveillance footage of him at the pawn shop. They know he's still in town. James handed them fortune cookies. He's desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. We just need to stay safe until he makes his final one. Noah cracked open his fortune. Read it aloud. Your patience will be rewarded. He laughed bitterly. I've been patient. Where's my reward? Right here. Elena took his hand. We're alive. We're together. We're fighting back. That's the reward. They ate in silence, exhaustion finally catching up with fear. James left around midnight, promising the security detail would stay all night. Elena and Noah lay in the hotel bed, listening to sirens and traffic and the sounds of a city that kept moving while their world stood still. Elena, Noah's voice cut through the darkness. Yeah. When this is over, when we win, when Peterson's in jail and we have the settlement money. He paused. Let's leave this town. Start fresh somewhere nobody knows our story. Build something new. Where would we go? Anywhere. Everywhere. Wherever we want. Noah pulled her closer. I'm done letting this place define us. Done letting poison and betrayal write our story. Elena smiled against his chest. Okay, when this is over, we'll go. Just drive until something feels right. Promise? Promise. They fell asleep like that, planning escapes from a nightmare that wasn't quite over. Because somewhere in the Tennessee night, Peterson was still out there, still desperate, still dangerous. And the next morning, Detective Reeves would call with news that changed everything one final time. Could they survive one more twist in their breaking story? The call came at 6 a.m., jarring them from restless sleep. We found him. Detective Reeves's voice was tight. Peterson. He's at the shop. Barricaded himself inside overnight. Says he won't come out until he talks to Noah Carter. Noah sat up, suddenly wide awake. What does he want? He says he has evidence that will change everything. Says the whole story isn't what we think. Claims he's being set up. A pause. Mr. Carter, I don't recommend going. But he's threatening to destroy documents if you don't show. Documents, he says, prove he's innocent. He's lying. Elena grabbed the phone. Detective, you can't seriously be considering this. I'm not considering anything. I'm informing you of the situation. We have the building surrounded. SWAT's on standby. If you choose to go, it'll be under heavy security. But honestly, I think Peterson's desperate and dangerous. I vote you stay here. Noah took the phone back. What kind of evidence is he claiming to have? Won't say. Just that it's proof the contamination wasn't his fault. That someone else knew about it and covered it up. Detective Reeves sighed. Look, this could be a suicide play. Could be a hostage situation waiting to happen. Could be nothing. But I had to tell you. Noah ended the call and looked at Elena. She already knew what he was thinking. No, absolutely not. You're not going there. He has evidence, Elena. Evidence that might prove he's innocent or might explain who else is responsible. We need to know. Noah stood, reaching for his jeans. If there's more people involved, more people who knew about the contamination and hid it, they need to pay too. Or it's a trap. Or he's lying. Or he's planning to hurt you to stop the lawsuit. Elena blocked the door. Noah, you just had heart surgery. You can barely walk across a room without getting winded. You're not confronting a desperate criminal. I won't be alone. The police will be there. SWAT, James's security team. Noah took her hands. Baby, I need to do this. Need to look him in the eye and hear what he has to say. Because if I don't, I'll always wonder if we got the whole truth. Elena wanted to argue. Wanted to lock him in the hotel room until this was over. But she saw the determination in his eyes and remembered their conversation yesterday. About respect. About letting him make his own choices, even when she disagreed. Then I'm coming with you. Elena. No, you don't get to exclude me and then claim it's about making decisions together. Elena grabbed her jacket. We do this as partners or not at all. They stared at each other. Finally, Noah nodded. An hour later, they stood 3 blocks from Peterson's auto repair behind a police barricade. Dozens of officers surrounded the building, weapons drawn. A SWAT team was positioned on the roof across the street. The morning sun made everything look too normal, like this should be just another Tuesday. Detective Reeves approached with body armor. If you're really doing this, you wear these. And you follow every instruction I give. The second anything feels wrong, you run. Understood. They suited up. The armor was heavy, uncomfortable. Elena felt like she was preparing for war, which maybe she was. A different kind than she'd expected, but war nonetheless. James Mitchell appeared from nowhere, his face grim. I try to talk them out of letting you do this. This is insane. Noted. Noah's voice was steady. But it's happening. A negotiator handed Noah a phone. He'll only talk to you directly. We'll be listening the whole time. Trigger word is mercy. You say that word, we come in hard and fast. Got it. Noah took the phone. Hit dial. It rang twice. Noah. Peterson's voice was rough, like he'd been crying or shouting or both. You came. You asked for me. What do you want? The truth. The real truth, not the story everyone's spinning. A sound like Peterson moving furniture. I know how this looks, but I swear to you I didn't know. Not until 6 months ago. You bought the building knowing it was contaminated. We have the emails. You have half the story. Yeah, the previous owner told me about contamination, but he showed me EPA clearance papers. Certification that the building was remediated and safe for commercial use. I trusted that documentation. Peterson's voice cracked. I know I should have done independent testing. That's on me. But I didn't deliberately poison you. Noah glanced at Detective Reeves, who was listening through a headset. She shook her head, skeptical. Then why run? Why empty the accounts? Because 6 months ago, I found something. Hidden in the office's false wall, left by the previous owner. Documents showing the EPA inspector who signed off on the building was bribed. Showing the contamination was way worse than reported. Showing a whole conspiracy to cover it up and sell the property to some sucker. Peterson laughed bitterly. That sucker was me. If that's true, why didn't you come forward? Why keep operating? I was scared. The people involved in the cover-up, they're powerful. Connected. They threatened my family if I talked. Said they'd frame me for everything. Make me the fall guy. A pause. So I tried to fix it myself. Used my savings to start remediation. But it was too expensive. I was going broke, trying to clean up someone else's mess. Elena grabbed Noah's arm. This could be true, or it could be an elaborate lie. Only one way to find out. Noah spoke into the phone. Show me the documents. Let the police see them. Can't. The people who threatened me, they broke into my house 2 nights ago. Took everything. That's why I came here. This office has copies hidden where only I can find them. But if the cops raid this place, they'll be destroyed in the chaos. Then tell us where they are. We'll get them safely. No, you come in. Just you. I'll show you everything. Then you decide if I'm a monster or just another victim. Peterson's voice turned desperate. Please, Noah. You're the only one who'll understand. You know what it's like to be destroyed by something you didn't see coming. Detective Reeves was shaking her head vigorously, making throat-cutting gestures. James Mitchell looked like he wanted to tackle Noah. Elena felt her heart hammering against the body armor. Okay. Noah's voice was quiet. I'll come in. No. Elena grabbed his arm. Noah, this is suicide. It's answers. Noah looked at her. If he's lying, we'll know. If he's telling the truth, we'll know that too. Either way, this ends today. Detective Reeves stepped between them. Mr. Carter, I can't authorize this. It's too dangerous. Then I'm going without authorization. Noah pulled free from Elena's grip. Peterson, I'm coming to the main entrance. You open the door, show me the documents, then we both walk out. Deal. Deal. Thank you. Thank you, Noah. The line went dead. The police scrambled, tried to adjust their positions. SWAT got ready to breach if needed. James was on his phone, probably calling every lawyer he knew. Elena caught Noah's face in her hands. If you die on me after everything we've survived, I will never forgive you. If I die, forgiveness will be the least of my problems. Noah kissed her, hard and desperate. I love you. Remember that. Then he was walking toward the building. Elena watched, body armor and police and SWAT surrounding her, feeling more helpless than she'd ever felt. This was it, the final piece of their nightmare. Either Noah came back with answers, or he didn't come back at all. The shop's door opened. Peterson stood there, looking 20 years older than the man who'd promised Noah partnership. Noah stepped inside. The door closed, and Elena waited, counting seconds like prayers. Inside that building, what truth was Noah about to discover? 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Elena stood behind the police barricade, watching the shop's windows for any sign of movement. The SWAT team was coiled tight, ready to breach. Detective Reeves had her hand on her radio, listening to the wire Noah wore under his body armor. He's showing me filing cabinets. Noah's voice crackled through the speakers. There's documents everywhere. Looks legitimate. Elena held her breath. James Mitchell stood beside her, jaw clenched. These are emails between the EPA inspector and the building's previous owner. Dates match the original sale. There's money transfers, threats, everything. Noah's voice held wonder and horror. Peterson's telling the truth. He was set up. Detective Reeves spoke into her radio. Mr. Carter, secure those documents and get out. We need to see them. But then another voice cut through. Unfamiliar. Cold. I'm afraid that's not going to happen. Elena's blood froze. Someone else was in that building. Who are you? Noah's voice, sharp with fear. Someone who's been cleaning up this mess for 23 years. And you two just became loose ends. The sound of a gun cocking. Drop the phone, Carter. The radio went silent. Static. Then nothing. Go, go, go. Detective Reeves screamed into her radio. SWAT breached the building from 3 directions at once. Glass shattered. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Elena stood behind the police barricade, watching the shop's windows for any sign of movement. The SWAT team was coiled tight, ready to breach. Detective Reeves had her hand on her radio, listening to the wire Noah wore under his body armor. He's showing me filing cabinets. Noah's voice crackled through the speakers. There's documents everywhere. Looks legitimate. Elena held her breath. James Mitchell stood beside her, jaw clenched. These are emails between the EPA inspector and the building's previous owner. Dates match the original sale. There's money transfers, threats, everything. Noah's voice held wonder and horror. Peterson's telling the truth. He was set up. Detective Reeves spoke into her radio. Mr. Carter, secure those documents and get out. We need to see them. But then another voice cut through. Unfamiliar. Cold. I'm afraid that's not going to happen. Elena's blood froze. Someone else was in that building. Who are you? Noah's voice, sharp with fear. Someone who's been cleaning up this mess for 23 years. And you two just became loose ends. The sound of a gun cocking. Drop the phone, Carter. The radio went silent. Static. Then nothing. Go, go, go. Detective Reeves screamed into her radio. SWAT breached the building from 3 directions at once. Glass shattered. Smoke grenades deployed. The next 60 seconds were chaos, shouting and movement, and Elena trying to run forward only to be held back by officers. Then gunfire. A single shot that made Elena's world stop. More shouting. Movement. Someone being dragged out of the building. But Elena couldn't see who. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past that single gunshot echoing in her head. Clear. Building is clear. We need medical. Paramedics rushed past the barricade. Elena broke free from the officer holding her and ran. Ran toward the building where her husband had walked into danger because he wanted truth, because he wanted justice, because he was too brave for his own good. She found Noah on a stretcher, blood on his body armor. Her scream died in her throat. "Ma'am, step back." A paramedic tried to block her, but Noah's eyes opened. Found hers. "Elena." His voice was weak but alive. "I am okay." The armor caught it. Elena collapsed beside the stretcher, sobbing so hard she couldn't speak. The paramedic was cutting away Noah's shirt, checking for injuries. The bullet had hit the armor plate directly over his heart. Hadn't penetrated. Noah would have bruising, maybe cracked ribs, but he was alive. "Peterson," Noah gasped. "Dead." Detective Reeves appeared, her face grim. "The man who shot you killed Peterson before SWAT could intervene. But we got him. Turns out he's a former EPA official. One of the names on those documents you found." James Mitchell pushed through the crowd, relief flooding his face when he saw Noah breathing. The documents? Secured. All of them. Detective Reeves held up evidence bags. Carter was right. Peterson was a victim too. The real criminals were the EPA officials who took bribes to falsify contamination reports, then spent decades covering their tracks. Noah tried to sit up, winced, fell back. How many officials were involved? We're finding out. But it's bigger than Peterson's shop. This goes back to the original battery plant closure. Multiple properties were certified clean when they weren't. Dozens of businesses built on poison ground. Hundreds of potential victims. Elena held Noah's hand, barely processing the words. All she cared about was the steady pulse under her fingers, the rise and fall of his chest, the proof that he was still here, still hers, still fighting. They took Noah to the hospital for observation. The bullet hadn't penetrated, but the impact had been severe. Doctors worried about his recently repaired heart. More tests, more monitors, more waiting in rooms that smelled like antiseptic and fear. But this time felt different, because this time they'd won. Not just survived, but actually won. The truth was out. The real criminals would face justice. And Noah had been the one to find the evidence that would bring them down. 3 days later, Noah was released again. The settlement offers started immediately. Peterson's estate, the EPA, the building's previous owners, insurance companies scrambling to avoid lawsuits. James Mitchell's lawyers negotiated aggressively. By the end of the week, Noah and Elena were looking at a settlement that would change their lives forever. $2 million. Compensation for Noah's medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, and punitive damages. Plus guaranteed medical coverage for life to monitor his heart condition. Elena sat in their hotel room, staring at the settlement papers. This doesn't feel real. It's not. Noah signed his name with a shaking hand. None of it's real until we leave. Until we get out of this town and start over somewhere new. They talked about it every night since the shooting. Where to go, what to do, how to build a life that wasn't defined by trauma and survival. Noah wanted to learn restoration work, working with classic cars in a clean environment. Elena wanted to write, maybe teach part-time. They both wanted peace. 2 weeks later, they packed everything they owned into a moving truck. Their apartment lease was up. Their ties to Tennessee were severed. James Mitchell came to see them off, pressing an envelope into Elena's hands. "What's this?" "Your mother's dress. I bought it back from the pawn shop the day after you sold it. Been holding on to it for the right moment." James smiled. "Figured you'd want it for your new beginning." Elena opened the envelope, and there it was. Her wedding dress, carefully preserved in tissue paper. The lace her mother had stitched by hand. The symbol of everything she'd been willing to sacrifice. She pressed it to her chest and cried, but this time from joy. "Thank you. For everything. For saving us. You saved yourselves. I just helped clear the path." James hugged them both. "Now go. Build something beautiful." They drove west with no destination in mind. Just drove until Noah said, "Here, in a small coastal town in Oregon where the air smelled like salt and pine instead of poison. They rented a cottage overlooking the ocean and spent the first month doing nothing but healing. Noah's heart grew stronger. The nightmares faded. Elena started writing their story, turning trauma into testimony. They made friends who didn't know about contaminated buildings or lawsuits or the price of survival. They were just Noah and Elena again. Husband and wife. Partners. Survivors. 6 months after leaving Tennessee, Noah opened a small restoration shop specializing in vintage cars. He worked carefully, taking only projects he loved, never pushing himself too hard. Elena taught creative writing at the local community college and published articles about environmental justice. They built a life that was smaller than their original dreams, but infinitely more precious. And on their 4th anniversary, they renewed their vows in a chapel overlooking the Pacific. Elena wore her mother's wedding dress, the one she'd sold and gotten back, the one that had survived everything. Noah wore a simple suit and cried through the entire ceremony. "You gave up everything for me," he whispered as they danced afterward, just the two of them on the beach. "Your dress, your security, your peace. How do I ever repay that?" "You already have." Elena kissed him. "You stayed. You fought. You let me love you even when it was hard. That's all I ever wanted." The sun set over the ocean, painting everything gold and red. In the distance, waves crashed against rocks that had stood for thousands of years. Strong, enduring, unbreakable, like their love, like their story, like the promise they'd made under string lights years ago in a different life. They'd lost so much. The innocence of thinking love conquered everything easily. The security of stable jobs and simple dreams. The luxury of taking health for granted. But they'd gained something more valuable. The knowledge that they could survive anything together. That sacrifice wasn't weakness, but the purest form of strength. That wealth measured in love would always matter more than money. Their story didn't end with a billionaire returning. It ended with something better. Two people who'd been broken and remade, who'd fought through poison and betrayal and fear, who'd learned that true wealth wasn't what you had but what you were willing to give. And in the end, they gave each other everything, which turned out to be exactly enough. The moral wasn't complicated. Love isn't about grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It's about showing up when everything's falling apart. It's about selling your wedding dress and meaning it. It's about letting your partner make choices even when you're scared. It's about fighting together instead of separately. It's about being each other's home when the whole world feels like poison. Elena and Noah Carter built that home, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice, day by day. And it stood strong against everything life threw at it, because it was built on the only foundation that ever really matters. Love that chooses to stay. What would you sacrifice for the person who makes you whole? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and inspire someone else who's fighting their own battle today. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on notifications because we have more powerful stories of love, resilience, and second chances coming your way. These are the stories that remind us what really matters. Stories that prove love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice we make every single day. Don't miss the next journey. Hit that subscribe button now, and let's keep building this family together. Your support means everything.